I would like to use my 4 minutes to briefly think about what are the lessons learned that we can draw from the MDG process. And I would argue the first lesson is there's the need to really broaden the agenda and to seriously include the environment. As you know, there has been a goal on sustainable development and ecological development in the old agenda, but it was hardly operationalized at the target level. So I think we need targets that reflect planetary boundaries, the protection of ecosystem services, sustainable water management in order to ensure proper development. And that's at least for 2 reasons. First, we know that degraded environments and natural resources already now limit our ability to address poverty. And second, scientists tell us that if we transgress certain planetary boundaries, there are real dangers of the Earth systems, that it might reach tipping points which could have disastrous consequences for humankind. The good news is that I think there's an emerging consensus among both the environment and the development communities that we need a joint agenda and to take the 3 pillars of sustainable development seriously and to include also peace and security. The second lesson learned is that we need a participatory process and universal goals, and that was already mentioned by Mr. Steiner. The reason being that the old agenda was donor-driven, and that didn't lead to so much commitment on some of the developing countries. So there's a need for a participatory process, and there's a need for universal goals. If we really want to include the environmental dimension, we also need the buy-in and the commitment by the developed countries in the process. The good news is that the 2 processes underway, the post-MDG process and the SDG process, are organized in a fairly participatory manner, and that there was a decision last September to merge the 2 processes next September to come up with a unified goal set 1 year later. The third lesson learned is that we need to have a limited set of inspirational goals and measurable targets. So that was really a positive lesson out of the MDG process, because it was a limited set that was clearly communicable and easy to understand for everybody and to buy in. At the same time, we also learned that only those goals were achieved where we had measurable, or well, at least partly achieved where we had measurable targets. So we need to come up with this new combination of goals and targets, and that's actually quite tricky, as it turns out, to have this limited set with a very ambitious integrated agenda. And we see that the way the environment will be reflected in that agenda is still quite disputed for several reasons. So that includes questions of whether to take up the cross-cutting issues or the sectoral issues, how to mainstream things, and also of differentiated and common responsibilities. So I think we are at a very exciting point in time, and at the same time, we also have quite some challenges ahead. Before I conclude, I would like to mention that this week I've also been here in Delhi for an Indo-German expert meeting on green and inclusive economies. And over a period of 2 years, we are jointly exploring what it means to accelerate the transition towards such green and inclusive economies. And I think it's a great exercise of mutual learning and also informing decision-making.